The story begins with a young boy walking on the sidewalk with his orange ball and toy wagon. He finds Spawn lying on the ground, covered in blood and barely alive, weakened from his battle in heaven with angels. He was trying to remain conscious, but he couldn't, and falls asleep. The young boy's name was Andy Frank, and he wanted to help Spawn. He tried to pick him up, but Spawn weighed over 400 pounds. Nevertheless, the boy managed to lift him into his wagon, but he didn't do it alone. He had some help from Spawn's chains, which were created in the depths of hell and instinctively helped their host, bearing Spawn's total weight. Step by step, the boy pulled the wagon towards his home, but Spawn couldn't help but notice the scars on the boy's body. Welts and bruises covered his back like an ugly road map. But before he could ask him about the scars, Spawn lost his focus again. Later that night, the boy's father returned home after a busy day at work and screamed at Andy, saying he's not made of money. The father was mad because he wanted to eat a hot meal, but Andy didn't know how to cook, so he just warmed up some frozen food. His brother Eddie was sitting at the table, angry that his father was taking his frustration out on his brother. He tried to help and confronted his father, but got punched in the face, which sent him over the table. His dad said that once he was done with Andy, he would take care of him too. The neighbors could hear the constant beating and screaming coming from their house, but nobody dared to say or do anything. Their dad was a well-respected police officer after all. The two boys spent the night talking, and Eddie was worried about his brother's wounds, saying he would need to wear long sleeves tomorrow. They both wished their mother was still alive, but they were all alone with their dad. Andy asked his brother to follow him to the back of the house because he wanted to show him something amazing. Their dad was passed out on the couch after having a few beers, so the coast was clear. Andy opened the door to the shed, saying he had something cool to show his brother. Spawn was lying in the corner covered in blood and asked him to please close the door. Eddie was shocked to see Spawn, but Andy said he's just like his personal E.T. The boy wanted to know how he was feeling since he was badly injured after falling on his head all the way from heaven. Spawn saw the bruises on the young boys and asked if their father did this, but they didn't tell the truth and said they got injured while playing tackle football. Spawn instantly got mad, but their conversation was cut short because their dad woke up and called out their names. He was mad again because it was late, and on Saturday, he wanted the boys early in bed. Tomorrow morning, they go to church. The father walked inside the church and pretended to be a good Christian, praying and acting like he wasn't the monster he really was. He told everyone that his boys injured themselves while playing tackle football, saying that they were growing up to be fine gentlemen and that he was very proud of them. Later that day, while watching TV, Dad asked Andy to bring him the last beer from the fridge and asked him to be extra careful. But the boy was very small, and the bottle was too big for his hands, causing him to drop it on the floor. This made a big noise, and his dad rushed immediately to scream at the boy, calling him an idiot and saying it was his last beer. The dad wanted to teach Andy a lesson and took out his gun. He put the gun to the boy's head, and Eddie wanted to help his brother, but he was kicked in the abdomen. The twisted father shot the gun, but it was empty and didn't have any bullets. He started laughing like a maniac and told the boys to go to bed while he went to the pub. Andy was very scared, crying his eyes out, saying their father was getting worse by the day. He couldn't breathe and felt like his dad wanted to actually kill him. Spawn rushed inside and demanded to know what had just happened here. He saw the two boys and instantly went to look for their dad, but he wasn't in the house. He had gone to drink some more. He tried to calm the two boys, saying things would get better. He promised. Later in the night, the dad had finished drinking and left the bar while his friends were still talking about him, saying what a great guy he was. But Spawn was waiting for him and dragged him into a dark alley, saying he didn't want to beat him because that tended to get out of control, while remembering a heated moment between him and his ex-wife. He told him he had two great kids who needed a father and wanted to leave him with a reminder of the kind of person he really was. He did something to him and said that if he was good, it would fade away in a month. Satisfied that his message had been received, Spawn headed out of town. It was time he got back home to New York City. The next day, the two boys were coming back from school when they found Andy's toy broken to pieces. The father was waiting for them on the bed, but he looked extremely pissed. Spawn had written all over his body, "I beat my kids. I beat my kids." He jumped towards little Andy and grabbed him by the mouth. He then slapped him as hard as he could, causing his brother to burst out crying. Eddie didn't know what to do and ran downstairs trying to cover his ears so he couldn't hear his brother's screams. But he saw something on the chair next to him. Eddie returned to his room and found his dad on top of Andy, beating the life out of the young boy. But this time he came prepared. He took his father's gun from the holster and pointed it towards dear old Dad. Dad said that's not a toy and asked him to put it down, but Eddie knew all too well that the gun wasn't a toy.